All right, people. So welcome to Jumbo IAS and welcome to UPSC Prelims Phoenix batch. In this batch, we cover the entire syllabus for UPSC Prelims examination. We revise the entire syllabus, both static as well as current affairs. Now, this lecture is related to current affairs, and if you have joined us already, well, you know this, that we are currently covering Day 4 International Relations Current Affairs. Okay. Now, the topics for Day 4 are basically, not is, are multilateral economic organizations. So there are certain international organizations which are economic in nature. So there were certain news items related to them. So we will revise everything related to all these organizations in today's lecture through a set of 20 MCQs. All right. So without further ado, without further delay, let's straight away dive into the lecture. All right, then let's begin. So International Relations Current Affairs Day 4, and this is multilateral, which is another name for international economic organizations, which have something to do with global economy. Okay. Now, let's start with question number 1. Question 1, which is related to IMF, the biggest economic organization. So with reference to IMF's 16th General Review of Quotas completed by early 2026, consider the following statements. It approved a 50% increase in total quotas, bringing the total to approximately 960 billion. The review resulted in a significant realignment of voting power, increasing the share of emerging economies like India and China. India currently holds a quota share of approximately 2.75%, making it the 8th largest shareholder. Okay, now listen to me very carefully. You see, IMF, how does IMF function? IMF has a lot of reserves, okay, based on which it conducts its operations. Now, these reserves are denominated in SDRs, special drawing rights, but that is a different thing. Now, how were these reserves constructed? Okay, these reserves are made up from contributions made by different countries. Okay, every country contributes some money to these reserves. Now, how much money would be contributed by each country depends on that country's quota. So the quota will decide how much money they would contribute to IMF's reserves. Clear? Make sense? Now, as per the latest 16 General Review of Quotas, well, these General Review of Quotas basically takes changes or makes changes in these quotas. So the total amount of quotas, if you add all these quotas, they have been increased to $960 billion. Okay, so this part is correct. So earlier it was around $400-500 billion. Now it has been increased to, $700 billion. Now it has been increased to $960 billion. So this part is correct. Now this is the increase in total number of quotas, right? Now every country has some quota. Currently India has 2.75%. So 2.75% of the total reserves are contributed by India. All right. Now this 16 General Review of Quotas increased the total number of quotas, but it did not change any of the, basically everyone was expecting that some quota of developed countries would be transferred to developing countries. So developing countries would contribute more. It was expected. India expected that its quota would rise, but it did not. So the internal rearrangement of quota, well, that was not made. The total increase in quota was made. You understand? So this was the case. So second statement is false. Now remember one more thing. Based on your quota, your voting power is also decided. So the more quota you have, the more voting power you have. That is why developing countries have been demanding more quota, okay, as compared to developed countries. That did not happen for India, okay, or China also. So internal rearrangement of quota did not happen. It has been postponed to 17th General Review meeting. India currently holds a quota share of, this part is correct. This makes India 8th largest shareholder in IMF. So the answer would come out to be B. You understand? Okay, next. In the context of IMF's surcharge policy reform, which of the following best describes the change? So surcharge policy reform is basically kind of the interest rate. Surcharge would be the interest rate that IMF charges on its loans. Okay. So what is the new reform? It eliminated all interest on loans to low-income countries. That can never happen. They would definitely charge interest. It increased the penalty for countries failing to meet carbon emission targets. That is there, but it is not part of surcharge policy reform. It reduced the extra interest on large long-term loans from 100 to 60 basis points. This is correct. 60 basis points is 0.6%, 100 basis point is 1%. So it reduced the extra interest charge on long-term loans from 1% to 6%. This is correct. Clear? C. It introduced a mandatory surcharge on all digital currency transactions. That this is not IMF's mandate. IMF does not have power over this. Okay. So the answer would come out to be C. All right. Next. This is a straightforward trivia based question. Consider the following reports. But UPSC does ask questions like these. World Economic Outlook, Global Financial Stability Report, Fiscal Monitor, World Development Report. So which of the above reports are released by IMF? So the answer is World Economic Outlook, Financial Stability, and Fiscal Monitor. Fiscal Monitor basically monitors the fiscal health of every country. World Development Report is released by World Bank, not by IMF. So the answer to this question would be 1, 2, and 3. Okay, next. Regarding IMF's Resilience and Sustainability Trust, consider the following statement. So IMF created this trust to promote climate change resilience and sustainability development. It was originally created in 2022 to address climate change and pandemic preparedness. By 2026, it is being reviewed to expand eligibility beyond climate change to include broader pandemic readiness. Yes. Okay. In 2022, its focus basically was sustainability, but then later, even disease preparedness, pandemic preparedness was added to its mandate, because we all know, in case of the next in future there is another pandemic-like situation, well, we need to be prepared. So, using this trust, IMF is making countries prepared for such a situation. So, both are correct. Just a second. Yeah. C. Right? Next. According to IMF's January 26 update, which of the following is identified as a tailwind for global growth? Now look, whenever we talk about growth, whether it's global growth or India's economic growth or any other country's economic growth, we make predictions. Yes? Now, we make predictions like in next year, what would be India's GDP growth? But remember, these are just predictions, okay, based on certain circumstances. Clear? If all these circumstances remain constant, then India would grow by 8%. Let's suppose 8% is the prediction. So if everything stays the same, then it will be 8%. But if things go bad, certain things go bad, okay, then this growth can decline. Those bad things are called headwinds. Okay, so for example, if there is another war, if there is an economic crisis, if there is climate disasters, all these things can retard the growth. These are called headwinds. But there are certain circumstances, if they happen, then growth can get boosted. Okay, for example, Donald Trump tomorrow announces that there won't be any tariffs. Growth would get a boost. Yes. So such situations, such good things, if they happen, they can, well, increase growth rate from the predicted version. This is known as tailwinds. These are known as tailwinds. Okay. So basically, when you are flying, if the wind is blowing from behind you, okay, if the wind is blowing from your tail, then your speed increases, right? That is why it is called tailwind. But if you're flying against the wind is blowing just on your headwinds. You understand? So what are the tailwind? Shifting trade policies and geopolitical tension. It can be surging investment in artificial intelligence and technology. As per IMF's January update, IMF says that more investment in AI and technology would boost productivity of the economy. And this increase in productivity can further increase our growth rate estimation. So this is a tailwind as identified by this IMF report. So the answer is B. You understand the whole point now? Okay. Next. With reference to New Development Bank in 2026, consider the following statements. NDB was formerly known as BRICS Bank. In 2025-26, it has focused heavily on green financing. Unlike the IMF, the NDB was created specifically as an alternative to Western dominated institutions. Okay. Now listen to me very carefully. The BRICS Bank is known as NDB Bank. Okay, from the very beginning, it still is called BRICS Bank by some people. Okay, but its official name is NDB, New Development Bank. So this part is correct. Recently, it has announced that it is going to provide more funds for green projects. So this is also correct. Now look, BRICS as an institution is made up of emerging and developing market economies. Okay, emerging and developing market economies. BRICS countries are those only: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Clear? Now, the reason why BRICS was formed was because these countries have always felt that the global international economic institutions like World Bank or IMF, for that matter, these institutions are Western dominated. Okay, and because they are Western dominated, they don't take care of the interests of EDMEs, the global South. They take care of their own interests, but they don't. These institutions are biased in favor of Western dominated developed world. Therefore, BRICS countries thought of creating an alternative institution which will take care of global South's interests. So basically, it was kind of a rebellion against Western dominated economic order, right? And hence, BRICS formed New Development Bank. It was created to rival IMF and World Bank, basically World Bank. So yes, NDB was created specifically as an alternative to Western dominated institutions. This part is absolutely correct. All right, next.